Yeah. Do you think the UNC can win the 2025 general elections alone? Let's get those results, Wendell.
Well, it was a runaway, just as I suspected, but 35 people said no, they cannot win an election on their own. 6 people said yes, and I suspect a couple in those 6 people were being sarcastic. I suspect so. But 6 people said yes, they can. One person said they did it in 2000. One person said yes. Yes, they did. But lasted what? All of 8, 9 months after. And 35 said no, they cannot win alone. All right, which is my opinion. But if nothing else forces them to come back together and go begging that man who folded his arms there for help again, it is this poll.
Well, I do beg to differ though. Good morning. The six persons were legitimate. I think it was Julie, John, and her family. So that's the only house that thinks that they can win alone. Look at Paul's face.
In all seriousness, Gary, what is this thing about Jolene John all of a sudden? Because I know when you zero in on somebody is not without reason sometimes, you know?
Yeah, definitely. When it is I decide to pick a target, there's a reason for it. Jolene John, good morning, everyone. Jolene John, prior to the local government election, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar was contacting me constantly because she was fully aware that you need that third constituency to ensure that you didn't lose Sangre Grande and even get a further distance in San Fernando. So you needed that push. Jolene John in that meeting said point blank, we don't need you. We don't care. We don't need any other party. We could win alone. It was unbelievable. No, so she said point blank that there was no that we could win on our own, and it was unbelievable. You couldn't win on your own in 2015 and 2020. I think that you have done more to cause the third constituency to say, well, yeah, we believe in you now. We don't need it. And that is the unfortunate thing. So from there, there's been a feud. There's been bad blood with her demonizing the third constituency. And Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, in fairness to her, she ignored it, and we moved forward in the local government. But what we would have seen is eventually it seems that she has acquired the ears of Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, and the comments that Kamala Prasad-Bissessar has been making is exactly what Jolene John was stating prior to the local government election.
Yeah.
So Gary, so is this? Do you think this? Where do you think? What do you think is the origin of this issue that? I can't speak on behalf of Jolene John, but you seem to have described some sort of issue. Is it with every other third force party, or is it specifically with you and the NTA, in your opinion?
No. What she said is we don't need anybody else. There have been several other persons that had overtures to Jolene John, and she told them the same thing. I think I recall I heard Larry Lala, Jerry Yetming, Carlos John. So several people met with her, and she gave the same impression. We don't need you. We don't need anyone else. UNC can win on their own. And it is the right. Just how you got those 6 people out of the 35. There will be people who would want to believe that. There are people that believe that NTA could win on its own as well. But you have to be a realist. You have to understand that the UNC have never won an election on their own other than one occasion, and that lasted a few months. And that was because what Michaela Pandy did is what Kamala Prasad-Bissessar was trying to target him for. He was able to embrace that third constituency under the UNC, and that's the only time it ever happened. And because he did it, it caused certain persons in the UNC to say, hey, you're bringing in these outsiders to try to be a part of our party. Time for us to collapse the government. So that is what ever happened.
The most recent evidence we have of the UNC going a general election on their own was 2015 and 2020, both of which they lost to the PNM. So, I mean, that adds credence to what you're saying in the most recent political history of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar made some statements in Presal. Do you think those statements were influenced by that thought process of Senator John?
No, definitely. But remember, it is also a thought process from what we would have seen that transpired in the People's Partnership from 2010 to 2015. It was Kamala Prasad-Bissessar's view, look, I am the bigger party. You all come to me, sign something called a FISA Accord, and I will run the whole government as I see fit. That was not a coalition government, and that was the problem. So what we're seeing now is just teaching that type of problem that will take place in trying to draft a proper coalition government. There have been over 70 countries in the world that had coalition governments. but it is not one where you all just come together, you all are the smaller parties, give me your votes, and then I now will select the president, the speaker of the House, the president of the Senate, all the Senate appointments. I will fire people as I see fit, and you as a political leader will read about it in the newspaper. So that's all that I am doing. I am trying to prevent a repeat. That is how she operated in 2010 to 2015, and her view is that this is what we intend to do in 2025. What I am saying is that I am not Winston Bukaran, I am not Prakash Ramadar, nothing against them. Their style is different to mine, but I am going to stoutly defend that third constituency to prevent what I will refer to it as political domestic violence. You want to bring us in and then after tell us, I have more money, I am stronger than you, so you will do what I see, and then after all the beatings, we must come outside and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen.
But then you have this discovery of political domestic violence, which is a really, strong statement. Because domestic violence, I understand the figurative language, but when you describe it as that, it seems to be a very dysfunctional interaction.
It was, if you recall the People's Partnership, that's what caused the collapse. And the only way you could rectify a problem is by facing it. You would have seen situations where the Congress of the People, persons were being fired as members of the Congress of the People in the Senate, as ministers, people being appointed without even the knowledge of the political leader of the COP. People begin giving ministerial appointments. That is wrong. So that is what I speak about when I say political domestic violence. You can't say, and listen to her comments on Monday, we are bigger. Who are you? What you bring to the table? And so with all of those comments, it is the perception, and there's nothing, I say wrong. There's not a matter of right or wrong. Her view is, look, we have more supporters. And you don't have 300,000, Kamala. The UNC has 200. The 100 that you will get is when there's no third party. Every time there's a third party, the numbers of the UNC could never be beyond 200,000, as you would have seen in 1981, 1991, and 2007. So don't come with the 300,000. When there's a third party, the UNC could never win. Anytime there's a third party, it spells a greater success for the PNM. So if we go in a 3-horse race in next year, the PNM will most likely, they could win Sama Barataria, Shogunas, East or West, I can't remember which one, and Maruga. So
are you by the overtures to the UNC then admitting to yourself, I think you've done this with us before, to be very honest, that you are also, by your overtures to the UNC as a third-party force, adding to the UNC's potential power in the election, saying that you are also fighting for your political relevance by needing to join with a bigger political party like the UNC? Is that what you're suggesting?
Let me add to that question. Let me add to that question from Paul to Gary. Because how do you respond to the notion or the comment that you were squatting within the UNC recently?
Okay, right. Well, the first one, Paul, no, you're wrong. I am not suggesting it. I am definitely stating it. that is exactly what it is. A third constituency is not going to have any relevance unless you're in government or you have seats. They cannot get those seats unless there's some degree of an alliance with the opposition because of our first past the post system. It's as simple as that. The UNR got 91,000 91,000 votes, which was about 30%. They got no seats in 1981. In 1991, the NR got 127,000, 25% plus, nothing. The Congress of the People got 147,000 to the UNC's 190,000. Look at the difference. It's almost neck and neck. And then one got 16, the other one got 0. So the only way that a third party can be, and I use the word relevance as in having positions of authority in government or opposition, is by forming a strategic alliance. So it goes both ways. Pertaining to your other comment, Wendell, putting the squatting, I was very shocked to hear Kamala Persad-Bissessar state that you want to come on the UNC platform, you want to use us with your hands swinging. My parents taught me never to storm. All right, I don't lie. Yeah, I have stormed a couple of times, but I was in Purple Haze parties and stuff when I was a teenager. But I don't storm events unless I'm invited. The NTA never attended any UNC event unless they were called and pleaded to, Gary, we want you on the platform. So to invite me and then to tell me you're coming on our platform, you invited me, you brought me. We didn't storm, so we didn't come with our hands swinging. You asked for us to attend. So, but I know what she is doing. She is trying to rally persons internally in the UNC to show that I am your big defender. Michaela Pandy treated you as sheep. Other persons see you as kindergarten children. Gary Griffith and these third party will come with a knife and fork and try to take control of you. So she's trying to solidify her base for internal election, which is fine. My job is to stoutly defend that third constituency to ensure that there's not a repeat of 2010 to 2015.
So in other words, you're admitting that you were used by Kamala Persad-Bissessar?
Not at all. Not at all. It is just as Senator Richards just said. The UNC needs the NTA just as much as the NTA needs the UNC. It is for all persons to understand and appreciate that. We cannot go into a marriage of convenience. We cannot go into a marriage where it is love, honor, and obey. It has that the days of that is over. And so my concept is to ensure that we are seen as equal partners. We will obviously respect the fact that the UNC may have more supporters, they have greater history, but that does not give you the authority to say that you come into my home, wipe your feet, we will treat you as we want. I will select who I want in the Senate. I will fire who I want. I will appoint who I want without you even knowing. That can't work. So what I am doing is setting a proper transformation roadmap towards good governance by laying a proper foundation with terms of references and making sure that we have rules of engagement to prevent a repeat of the mistakes of 2010 to 2015.
But the mere fact that you've been there before, you saw how she operated back then. What could possibly convince you that things are going to change?
The fact of the matter is that the UNC certainly do not want to lose 3 times in a row. And the only way that they can win is by forming an alliance. This is not holding them to ransom. This is not threatening, but letting the country, you see that third constituency, gentlemen, they are a very sensitive lot. They are not going to be used and they're not going to have a repeat of what happened in 2010 to 2015. The Congress of the People moving from 147,000 to probably having about a couple of dozen persons in the party now is because of how they were treated. I have to make sure and jealously defend the rights of that third constituency to make them believe that I am not going to allow them to be involved in that political domestic violence where give me your votes, let me get 21 seats, and then you could, if you want to go, who wants to go could go. No, it is important that that third constituency understands the leadership this time around is going to prevent that from happening. And when that happens, you're going to reignite that 147,000. You will get the majority of those 18 to 33-year-olds who have never had an option between the PNM, other than the PNM and the UNC since 2007. That is my responsibility. It is hoped that Kamala Persad-Bissessar would appreciate all that I am doing is to ensure that we have a proper foundation to prevent a repeat of 2010 to 2015.
How should the public, Gary, interpret this? And this is something I said yesterday. When you're looking at the chronology of your long-standing relationship with Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and the UNC, you were Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's National Security Advisor. You were her Minister of National Security in time 2010 to 2015. After that, you had some choice words about Mrs. Persad-Bissessar. You became Commissioner of Police. You had your tenure there. Coming out of that, you had some choice words about Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and Dr. Rowley about their leadership or lack thereof. And I'm, of course, paraphrasing here. Please correct me if I'm misinterpreting you in any way.
No, you're going well.
Are going well, right?
Yeah.
So, and all these are public statements. So the public is taking in Gary's perspective on these two leaders, right? Which are very strong words. Because I mean, you're not somebody shy to strong words. Then local government election comes around, you reconcile with Mrs. Persad-Bissessar, you hold hands, you form a strategic alliance with her, and then now this. How should the public interpret this chronology of falling out, getting back together, falling out, getting back together, from your perspective as a political leader? Because it seems unstable. I'm using that word from somebody outside looking in, that the in, the out, the in, the out, the in, the out. You know, so they'll get back in before 2025 and then they'll fall back out. Why should the public believe this is something stable and sustainable?
Excellent. Well, the first thing, I'm glad you admitted it. Keith Rowley spends more time speaking about Gary Griffith than anybody else. Kamala Persad-Bissessar now spends more time speaking about Gary Griffith than anybody else. It's amazing that a political party that does not have one of the 41 seats, the two major political parties, their leaders seem to have the biggest concern or to banker on Gary Griffith and the NTA. So it says a lot about the NTA. It says a lot about that third constituency. Both political leaders are fully aware that if the NTA continues to do what it is doing and they work with the UNC, the PNM will be annihilated, similar to 1986 and 2010. Kamala Persad-Bissessar is also aware that if it is that you disrespect us and we go our separate ways, you're going to get a repeat of the results of 1981, 1991, and 2007, where you might very well lose 3 more seats and it'll become 25-16. therein lies the strength of the third constituency. My job is not, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do a job, to strongly represent that third constituency and to ensure we have a proper, stable government. Paul, as you just said, that is what a marriage is about. A marriage, when it is we now start something like this, yes, there was an initial situation in local government election, but it was there with Julian John in Kamala's head constantly. Take them out, remove them. She did every single thing to try to belittle and undermine the NTA. So it is for Kamala Persad-Bissessar to understand that if you really truly want to represent that 200,000 UNC supporters and you want to get them in government, if you have concerns, you don't need to go on a platform and to be talking about you need to wipe your foot and what you bring to the table. Even when she spoke about how you got appointed, she doesn't understand political history because that is how the UNC started under Club 88. Michaela Pandy was appointed by a group of persons, and then it was a year or a couple of years later before you had your internal election. So the type of petty comments being made, it is not what is required. If we want to deal with a situation, you could have contacted me, but she didn't for 3 weeks. So my job, Paul, is not to, I intend to be very transparent. I intend to ensure to that third constituency, we are not going to allow a repeat of 2010 to 2015. So
but how is this public spat in keeping with building public confidence in either both the UNC and or the NTA and any potential political marriage? Because the public is looking on, as you would well imagine, and saying, but these people, and I understand your analogy, well, it's marriages have falling out and coming back together, but marriages, I don't know that anybody's marriage could withstand public consumption of this kind of discord over a long period of time. People will say, well, something is wrong here. You understand? Yeah. And I understand the concept of falling out and this, but this, your rhetoric, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's rhetoric, I haven't heard anything from Julian John yet. How is that helping the public to say this is a potential vehicle for good governance when this happens in the public domain?
Yeah, because good governance is not based on what you say on a political platform. The foundation that you're going to get for a good governance is a transformation roadmap. That is what is going to unite the parties. That is what is going to unite the country. What we
this public fight is a transformation roadmap?
No, that's not what I said. What I said is what is going to cause the unification of the parties and the country is a transformation roadmap of solutions that we intend to bring. That is what is going to bring the parties together. Speaking on a platform and attacking Gary Griffith or vice versa, I agree, that is not the avenue. But again, I think it is important that there must be a degree of transparency. You had 147,000 persons voting for a UNC government, and then they realized, but we have no part of the government. That can't be right. It is important that I stoutly defend that third constituency to let them know. Because if it is I don't do what I'm doing, they're not going to come and vote, Don't feel as because I'm a good looks that third party people are just going to turn up. They want to ensure that we are not going to be used in any way. Stop laughing, Paul. We are not going to be used in any way again. And they want to ensure that we will be part of the government. So I am setting the framework, one, for my own supporters to say that, hey, I am going to defend you and prevent a repeat. If I don't do that, that 147,000 could become 40,000. I need to win back that 147,000. The only way to get back that confidence is knowing that there's leadership that is going to prevent that political domestic violence of 2010.
Gary, for some very strange reason, I think I understand your strategy, because when Sandukaran, let's face it, was considered to be a weak leader. He was well liked, integrity intact and so on, but he was considered to be weak. So as a consequence of his weakness and then turning it over to Prakash Ramadar, it diminished the capability of the Congress of the People to negotiate within our government. So I understand that party's strategy, but it just seems too that the opposition to the PNM hoping that the PNM is so disliked as a government that they could slip in, and that's what you all hoping, in my opinion, that the people get to dislike the PNM so much at that point in time that they will say, let's just go ahead with these guys and then.
Yeah, and you're correct, Wendell. You're correct, because when I see, in contrast to Kamala Persad-Bissessar's comment, you need to pull your weight. I pulled my weight. I lost 25 pounds pulling my weight in that local government election, doing what no political leader ever did. I walked the length and breadth of the corridor from Diego Martin up in Scorpion Hill, Cameron Road, Lupino, Laventille, Silots, Beetham, Arima, Tunapuna, then even San Fernando and Sangre Grande to help UNC candidates. So to make a very comical comment, you need to pull your weight. Where were you pulling your weight? So I understand. And when I did that walk in that corridor, the UNC and Kamala needs to come away from Deep South to come in the corridor and understand how people feel about the UNC. And it's not to attack the UNC, because the PNM going to South and Central, they will get the same response. That corridor is a critical element to decide who wins an election. And that is where that third constituency comes in. The majority of those floating voters are in that corridor from Diego Martin to Arima, inclusive of Sangre Grande, San Fernando West, and even Point Fortin. So that is where you're not going to get those people to come and vote if they believe that this is going to be a repeat of our UNC government just utilizing the third constituency. I have my job to do. She needs to just back off and respect the third constituency. We must be seen as equal partners. It cannot be that one partner is more equal than the other.
I get all of that, Gary, and I get all of that, and the issue. I think the biggest issue is how do you motivate that independent voter to come out and vote, because I think they are the most disillusioned group, and I think they are being joined in that group by disillusioned UNC and disillusioned PNM members. Yeah. And there is a toxicity and divisiveness in the politics. And it's not only unique to Trinidad, I think it's replicated in several countries, including the United States, that just has voters almost apathetic about how do I participate in a process that is so toxic. And when you have those kind of disagreements that are so public, which we are discussing this morning, it feeds into that whole toxicity and divisiveness. And if you're talking transformation has to be in everything that you do, even before you get to government. And that transformation has to be about how we communicate with each other and how we deal with the politics. And if those independent voters are not seeing that transformation happening in terms of what they're seeing the alternatives doing, why should they vote?
Yeah, and there's nothing I could even challenge there. You're spot on, and you're correct, Richard. And that is where, again, what I am bringing to the table is solutions. We are not here to spend time bashing the PNM or the UNC. We intend to spend all our time finding solutions, not just in national security, but a transformation roadmap that you're going to see to assist in turning around Trinidad and Tobago. When I operated as minister, it was my accident that it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. As commissioner of police, it wasn't accident that it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years, or that public trust in the police moved from 14 to 59%. On my departure, it went back down to 8%. It is proper type of leadership that I intend to put. And it's not me, it's a team. That same team that transformed national security would transform health, education, the economy. That is what those persons you speak about, Richard, want to hear. They don't want to hear who could bash anyone. So yes, it was unfortunate that the political leader of the UNC went on the platform, but that is her style. That is how she figured, I intend to get into the next government doing exactly that. There's no right and wrong to it, because you have 70-odd coalition governments in the world, in countries, 70 countries had or have. And some have been like that. I am going to be the maximum leader. You just give me votes of your parties and I will run it. That is not happening again. That's the difference. I intend to make sure we have a type of coalition government that gives representation. That is what caused the MSJ and TOP and the COP and all of that and NJAC to leave, because they realized, but we're not part of this government. Nobody's speaking to us. That is what I'm doing. It is going to be difficult. My job is to get Kamala Persad-Bissessar to understand the value and respect that third constituency, which is what Basio Pandey did in 2000. She just needs to do the same thing. It's not going to take away anything from the UNC. She needs to just appreciate. Pardon?
If it is that well, go ahead, Paul.
Two-part question on leadership. How much of this do you think, these machinations, which to me, I'm very surprised at this spot in the public domain, to be very honest, is about Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's consolidation of her own leadership within the UNC? Because there, from the mumblings on the street, there are some challenges around, and she's trying to consolidate her own leadership within the party, because you have to be strong inside the party before you can be strong outside the party in politics, as you well know. And how do you, that's part one. And part two is, how do you respond to the suggestion that, well, and I'm trying to paraphrase here accurately, a political party that didn't hold internal elections, that a leader appoint himself and everybody else are just appointed by him? I think that's the first one.
Okay. So the first one, the last one first. This is exactly how the UNC was formed. So anybody who criticizes that, how do you think UNC was formed? Basdio Pandy named the Club 88, appointed himself as the political leader, and he appointed 5 deputy leaders. So Kamala Persad-Bissessar needs to do her homework to understand how the UNC was formed. That is how political parties are formed. You can't have an election on the formation of a party. So the UNC was formed the same way. So Kamala needs to do her homework before she makes stupid comments to try to attack other parties. As it pertains to your first point, Paul, that is exactly what is happening. When Kamala Persad-Bissessar speaks about Basdio Pandy treating those like sheep, I wouldn't do that for you. The NTA, that knife and fork party, will come down on you and look down on you. The people are speaking, referring to you all as kindergarten children. I will treat you all as big men because I love you. She is consolidating her base. She's trying to make sure, look, these people, the Pandy and the Gary and all these other MPs, they don't like you. You've got to stay with me and I will keep you till you'll keep your job. That is her right as a political leader. She wants to solidify her base so that she wouldn't be removed in her own party. That's fine. But do not use the NT as a scapegoat to come and try to diminish our involvement by trying to discredit us, to try to enhance your strength in your own party.
Are there plans for the NTA to hold an election for leadership before the next general election? Is that part of your...
Hopefully we'd like to do that. We are now again looking at the number of persons and making sure that we have something proper structured. I think the UNC, it took about 2 or 3 years before the UNC actually had their initial election. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, because I think when he formed Club 88, it was just within 3 years after there was a general election, and that's where the UNC was formed. I can't recall when UNC had their first internal election. I do not know if it was before that general election, but as I said, that is how Club 88 was formed, and this was based on persons unanimously agreeing and voting for persons in an executive. So to come at that. And again, this is Kamala trying to undermine the 3rd constituency to give relevance for herself, for her own party, exactly as you said, Paul. So what she did on Monday was internal election campaigning rather than for a general election.
But Gary, why are you so fixated on linking up with the UNC? I mean, you know their history. You know what's going to happen, even if you convince people that it's going to change. You know what's going to be coming your way. Why are you so fixated on them?
Easy. That's a very simple question. Why do you form a political party? You form a political party to win. That's it, to win. You form a political party to get in government. This concept of let us stay the path and let us be right and sing kumbaya, the reason you form a political party is because you feel that I have the character traits to serve the country. And the only way you can get in government as a third party is to form strategic alliances. It doesn't mean that you need to sleep with the devil, but what you need to do is to stand firm on principles to ensure good governance. So that is why we are doing this, because by and large, I think people have accepted that this is the worst government the country has ever seen. So if that is the case, they don't want an exchange. They want to make sure that there's a government.
Why not form an alliance with the COP, HOPE, and any other party you feel aligns with your principles and values? Why does it have to be the UNC?
I agree with you 100%. In fact, that is being done. There's constant dialogue going on right as we speak with other political parties. So that word of National Transformation Alliance is not the NTA UNC. It's not an alliance for the UNC. It's an alliance of other political parties who have the same concept of what we see for principles of good governance. And if those people have those same principles, I said, one of the things that, however, there are going to be clashes. I'll be very blunt about it. When Julie John kept speaking, if not the UNC, then who? I could tell you, if the biggest problem this country had with national security have been governments giving state contracts to gangs. You give them a $5 million contract to build a $50,000 box train. They use it to purchase more drugs, buy more weapons, hire more gang members, pay off rogue police officers, and put hits on other gang members. It started since 2006 with the PNM. Both governments have done this. The NTA stating that this is non-negotiable. I had clashes with my own government. You are aware of it. Whether it be live sport.
Gary, I want to debunk that start date you given there, because we had a UNC government prior that also engaged in activities like that. And I can call the gentleman's name who was linked to those things, but I won't. And you very well know.
No, but all right, I take that back. But I was just trying to remember what the spike in crime took place when it is a prime minister turned gang members into community leaders in 2005, 2006. That's when you got under Michaela Pandy was less than 100. 5 years later, the murder rate went to over 500. It was because of that. And I'm not saying that it was only PNM. You saw it. I clashed with government ministers as the Minister of National Security. It made front page. I am not going to negotiate. So there are certain things, gentlemen, that will be non-negotiable. So if you want good governance to ensure that we are not going to sleep with the devil and to socialize and give contracts to gang members, if not the NTA, then who?
Well, I think
question is valid. Why are you fixated on aligning yourself with a party that could be associated with gangs?
Well, again, but the PNM has done it because of what they did in the past, because you did not have a third constituency that is putting their foot down and said, this is not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Many government officials in this government and probably in the People's Partnership with the UNC thought that it was right. They said, I, as a commissioner, I clashed with a prime minister who said, well, it is their right to apply. They are citizens of this country. Really, Keith? Really? You can't do that. That is when you do that, you're now setting the tone for these criminal elements to be emboldened and to be able to get more sophisticated weapons than the police. So unless it is that the NTA is in government, you're going to have a repeat of that, regardless of whether it's the PNM or the UNC. Because the culture of these political parties is that there's nothing wrong with that. We give these guys money to reduce crime. That is a plaster on a sore. I am not negotiating with criminals. I am going to take it to them. And if it is, again, I want to stick firm. You murder somebody, you rape somebody, you kidnap somebody, you're a cockroach. And people who have a problem with Gary Griffith saying that, I am not going to see you and facilitate you and call you a community leader. So there are certain things that we will stick to. And if the country wants to have a good government, the NTA has to be part of it.
It's interesting that you identify all these major problems, in your opinion, with the PNM and the UNC. And you think the NTA is the vehicle through which these political parties can be fixed in parentheses. That's an interesting concept. Both parties, the PNM is how old, Wendell? 60 years?
64, 65, something.
65 years old. The UNC is... Yeah. The UNC is but 30-something years old.
They just celebrated 20 or something.
Is it 20 or 25? Anyway,
20 or 25.
They're the two most long-standing political parties in the country. Mm-hmm. They've established a particular way of doing things. They've established a particular leadership structure. They've established a particular political personality of their own. They've both been in government, the PNM, more than any other party in the country. But you think that yourself and the NTA can change what you say are the major flaws in these parties. Why you think you can do that?
Because, again, people who have culture, don't get me wrong, gentlemen, the PNM and the UNC have done so much for the development of Trinidad and Tobago, but people will always see the glass half empty. They will demonize both parties and see the worst of them because you might be on the other side of the fence. I don't. I have seen immense value of the PNM and the UNC. But my style of leadership is one, not to target and look at somebody because of the party card that they hold. So and that is where the NTA's concept of good governance is not based on the party card. The PNM is that. I could speak about at least 7 members of parliament who are upset about the actions of Keith Rowley removing me as commissioner. But they can't say a word because that is the PNM culture. We toe the line. They stand on principle of let the country burn. We're not going to cross our political leader. So be it. The UNC is one, again, a lot of people in the UNC are very concerned about the actions made by Kamala Pandy and her comments. But my take is to try to unite Trinidad and Tobago. When we get in government, there are several people in the PNM I would love to be able to come back to fix the country, including you, Wendell. So, because I don't care about your party card. Why must we have a state board where you handpick people with no qualification or experience in the state board So they're incompetent, but your one qualification is your party card. And that is a recipe for corruption and incompetence. I would like to have 10% of all persons in state boards be selected by the opposition to put checks and balances. So the things that I speak about, Paul, have never been done before because the PNM and the UNC have always been, we in government, is we time now. And that is what has destroyed the country. I intend to find a way to unite the country by getting the best minds available for the transformation of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. You've put out a call recently. You intend to contest 41 constituencies at this time, and put out a call for persons who want to be part of the NTA in that regard. How has that been going? And who would be an eligible NTA candidate in your opinion, in terms of somebody who's in their mindset?
Anybody who has the capability not to see yourself as a maximum leader, somebody who is willing to be criticized, to be able to be bullied. I hate yes people around me. That's the first thing. I do not want. And yeah.
So you are somebody who's willing to be criticized?
Well, there's a difference. All right, let me explain. When I was minister, when I was commissioner, the reason for my measured success is not having yes people around me. That has been the problem in our politics. So when I speak even with the NT executive, this is not a case of everything I say, you have to slam the table. That is the politics we have seen. Mine is I do not want yes people. You see something wrong, we debate it, we argue about it, but don't every single time I say something, you slam the table and an agreement. That is what I want. So those are the 41 candidates I'm looking for. Not persons who will blindly agree with everything I say because you want to keep your walk, you want to keep your seat. Again, likewise with the UNC, several members of parliament will not say a word because they don't want to lose their safe seat in the next election. That is what will cause the maximum leadership. My style is not like that. You see a problem with me, let us trash it out and let me know how you feel. Don't come and say yes, bang the table, and then you back your shoo in. That is the type of governance that we need. And those are the type of representatives that we need as members of parliament. Or
so you don't consider yourself a maximum leader type person?
Definitely not, because if that is the case, a maximum leader on most occasions in these times would be failing. My measured success as a Minister of National Security, Security Advisor, Commissioner of Police, Manager of National Sporting Teams have shown that what I want is to get the best minds around me. I do not care if you don't like me. I do not care if I don't like you. We will clash, we will argue, but I do not want yes people around me. That has been the problem. The PNM, so many members of parliament and ministers, we calling, what are you calling me for? Go and tell your boss, no, I can't do that. I want to keep this position. Same thing with the UNC. Don't use Gary Griffith as a tool to be arguing. Have the strength to go and tell your political leaders that my style is that you have a problem with what is happening with us. Tell me, talk to me, and let me know how you feel. And because if you feel that this is going to cause you to lose your position, that is what will cause a political leader to have persons who will just be blindly supporting you because you want to keep your safe seat.
Have you reached out to someone like Michaela Pandy?
No, but I have spoken to other political parties, and I intend to, again, you would have seen the release that we made. We intend to speak with all political parties who have the same concept of good governance, not one of the maximum leader where you feel that whatever I say, everyone must follow. We need, and that is the importance, Wendell, of a coalition government, because we would have seen we have failed miserably with the PNM and the UNC of I am the leader, what I say, everybody just listens. We need to have a coalition government to put checks and balances. So if somebody goes off track, then we can fix it. That is why I was fired as a minister without even speaking to a prime minister because of principle. I was removed as a commissioner of police because I refused to adhere to wrongdoings that were being pressured on me by politicians. That is the type of, that is what we need. So I intend to speak with political parties. If they have the same view, the same principles, then we can talk.
Has Jack Warner reached out to you to broker a peace deal with what has happened lately?
Well, I read that on today's newspaper. It was interesting, but no, I have not communicated with him on that recently.
Okay.
But really and truly, it's me only brokering. I think what it is that Kamala Persad-Bissessar needs to understand that times have changed. That third constituency, as I said, they're a sensitive lot. They are not going to come back and vote blindly for UNC candidates or even NTA candidates unless they believe that there's a proper place for them in government. They are not going to, because they want to know, Gary, you want us to come back. Tell us that, show us how there's not going to be a repeat of 2010 to 2015. What I am doing is shooting that. I've slammed that my stake in the ground and let everyone know we are aware that we are a smaller party. We respect you, but we are not going to be treated as an inferior party where you could go on a platform, belittle us, speak all sort of negative things, and expect me to Winston Duke around down the place and say nothing. It ain't gonna happen.
I don't think anybody could argue against that.
What are your thoughts? Let me open the can of worms now. What are your thoughts on the mystery barge in Tobago and the cocaine that washed up on the show?
Well, again, it goes back to the lack of proper governance. Border protection. I did a proper policy program, 20-something odd pages to have a border protection unit after liaising with the US. It was sidelined by the government. I did the concept for the drones that would have been able to lock down our borders, not an OPV. We had the damming vessels. We had a national operations center. We have a radar that was not working. The government has totally collapsed as it pertains to securing our borders. And again, it goes all the way back to the barrier divers, where there were several things that we had in place, such as ROVs, which would have been submersible drones, and things that we recommended. I did tenders, I did proposals. They've all been shut down. That is what I'm speaking about. When I transformed the police service, wasn't just about the talk, was technology, unit systems that pegged back criminals and made people feel safer. As soon as I left, all of these things were unplugged. It's the same thing that you would have been seeing now with the barge. You have a minister of energy stating, well, the barge has hundreds of names of the same name. He doesn't even realize there's a reference number that you would have been able to pick it up. The country started finding out more about the barge on social media.
He did reference the IMO, I think it is number, in addition to the name of the vessel. So well, he did
not initially. He gave an excuse to stall as to why it wasn't taking place. So the public got more information on social media than from the government. But irrelevant to that, we had systems to prevent this. This was and if it is that you want to continue to shut down and dismantle things that worked because of political pettiness, those are the results that you will get.
Never a dull moment in sweet TNT. That's what I say.
But as I said, gentlemen, to the UNC and the NTA supporters, let your heart not be bothered. This is required. And that is what did not take place in 2010. We had political leaders sign something, a piece of paper called a FISA Accord, and it was a handover deed. The COP now belongs to you. The MSJ, NJAC, top, it now belongs to you. It cannot happen. All we are stating is that to have a good government, we need to respect each other. You can't be going on a platform. How many people in your party? How you get there? Don't come with your hands swinging. Why? When you do that, it reminds the 147,000, oops, she did it again.
So you expect this to be worked out in the not too distant future?
You know why? Because there's no other option. The country demands change. They don't want exchange. So they want to remove the PNM. The vast majority, you'd have seen it in local government, 60,000 difference in a 30% turnout. In a general election, which is usually 60%, you multiply it by 2, that's 120,000 difference. Guess what? That is the result of the difference in 2010 to the partnership to the PNM. So it's the same numbers, but they want to ensure that if we do this, are we going to get a repeat of 2010 to 2015? The Rishmis, the sunlight has killed COVID, all of these things will change if you have a proper governance structure so that one person wouldn't whisper in the ears of one person and they make a decision. I intend to ensure that I'm right there, as well as the other political leaders, so we have a proper representation to put checks and balances and to use a transformation map to ensure Trinidad and Tobago is going to get the best government the country has ever seen, inclusive of the UNC.
I leave this question last on purpose because I know we only have about 30
Let me
seconds.
answer this question before
you can't get us in too much trouble. Have you reached out to Philip Alexander?
Oh, the one thing, that man spends more time speaking about the things that he has achieved based on what other people did. So, I mean, for a man, the man has resigned 7 times. He's a boomerang kid. He continues, he spends time attacking everybody else other than looking in the mirror. So, Philip, remember, he had resigned, I think, about 20-something times now. So, there's nothing to speak to him about because he's no longer a member of our party. I think the last thing he said, he's waiting on 350,000 people to vote. So, I think right now he has 349,983 left for him to come back into politics.
Gary,
No,
do you believe a change? Do you believe a change in the leadership of the UNC will make a difference in the upcoming election?
You see, and that is not my business. I would be fast and out of place to tell the UNC what they should do. What I would ask the UNC to do is to ensure that their leader, instead of attacking third parties and trying to look down on them, try to respect them, try to do what Michaela Pandy did. Embrace, have the humility, have the charisma to show that there's a place for you. Not just to stain your finger and then you make the decision, but to say that I understand that you are just as equal as the UNC member. And that is what is required. So it is not my job to tell the UNC who they should have as leader. I will ask them that their leader should have some degree of respect for that third constituency.
Harry, thanks for being with us this morning.
Take care, gentlemen.
Yeah.